Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're episode 320 of Games Compound. I am Mike Albertin, and who's getting new body parts with me tonight?
Oh, hello, it's me. It's Dominic Cichocki. I'm on the Kingdom Hearts stuff a lot, and I have a show on YouTube called Dissonant Waves. You should check it out. And here we are again with Hyakimaru.
And this is Joe Larrey, and I promise you guys by the end of this podcast, I'm going to get that sword.
I can save the game here.
We're here to talk about, I would say, a deep cut. A game that I only know because one of my previous co-hosts kept talking about it and talking about that one day we're going to do it. He wanted to play it, and he never put it on the schedule and left the show. But so it never happened, but it's been on my mind ever since then in 2020. And 2025 is the year I do stuff that I thought about in 2020, apparently.
That's how it always goes. It's on the list, and then it's like, oh, you know what? I have room now.
Yeah, I mean, I do make, yeah. And I try to put deep cuts in there when I know I get people who will talk about it with me. So we're going to talk about Blood Will Tell, developed by Sega and Red Entertainment, and came out for PS2 in 2004.
Now, interestingly, Red Entertainment is important to us, Mike, because this was, I guess, theoretically, the next project they worked on after Bujingai.
Okay, I did not expect that.
Bujingai was like late 03 in Japan. This was 04, and then they both came out in 04 everywhere else. So This is an interesting lineage.
Oh, they've done a couple of games. They've done another game that I know of. Sakura Wars 5, So Long, My Love. Never played it, but I know of it.
Ooh, yes. I played a little bit of that. I do want to beat that game one day.
Oh, and Gungrave. Never played those, but I know of them. Oh, Thousand Arms. Never played that, but I know of it. Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Muscle Fighters. That's a great one.
Twisted Tales of Spike McFang for Super Nintendo. Never played that either, but I know.
Like Blood Will Tell, Twisted Tales of Spike McFang is a really expensive and rare GB or SNES game.
Yeah.
Although I think its rarity on SNES is like way more than the PS2 Blood Will Tell. I think like Spike McFang is like almost $1,000.
Yeah, it is. I'm looking at it right now. $1,200.
That's too fucking much.
That's I mean, I paid a fraction of that for Blood Will Tell, and that's still a lot of money.
I just played this on my Steam Deck. The way you...
Yeah, I like playing on the hardware.
I can't. I just can't do it.
That's the only way. No, go ahead.
I also don't like not having... I wouldn't have beat this game without save states, for the record.
Sure.
So.
But I've only heard about Blood Will Tell in terms of it being an expensive and rare PS2 game, like Haunting Ground or Kuon.
Okay.
So
done Haunting Ground also on this podcast. Haven't done Kuon yet.
So it's cool that I got to play one of these. I mean, I guess Graffiti Kingdom is up there, but I don't think it's quite the status that this has.
That was the same guy who got me to do Graffiti Kingdom, and the reason why this was in my mind for 5 years. So, I've never played this game. I just heard him talk about it. I knew it existed. It also, if I remember correctly, was either a replay or a super replay for Game Informer a long, long time ago.
Not that I know of.
They did do something with it. It was somehow in Game Informer at one point.
It could have been
or something like that.
I do not remember it being one. I've watched all of them, but
that's how they meant. That's where he knew it from. And I think when I posted in the Overblood chat, which we'll get to later, I think somebody had made a comment about it.
Let me look at the.
But I don't.
The wiki.
There's a wiki for that.
There is.
That's cool. There's not a wiki for this podcast. I'm still upset about that. Somebody make one.
What are the? Okay.
But that's my memory of this game. I never played it. I just knew it existed because of my friend at the time talking about it. And it's just one of those things that had lived in my head rent free. And I've always been curious about it. Because for some reason.
Sorry. Oh, yes. Okay. This was on the same episode as Shadow of Destiny, which is another game I wanted to talk about in relation to this game.
I know that PS2 game. That's an early PS2 game.
Yeah, that's a real cool time travel PS2 game.
Clock Tower on the cover.
Yeah, that's a really rad game.
Didn't Team Silent do that? Wasn't that like the Silent Hill people did that game?
I know Konami worked on it.
It's possible. I don't know anything about it. I just know I saw it many times at EB Games back in the day, and I remember picking it up, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's on the bookshelf to the right of me, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I have definitely played it on PS2. I want to get the PSP copy as well to fully dive into it. But yeah, that's another game I think about when I think about the really cool, weird PS2 games that were out there.
I'm trying to play some of them.
PS2 that was a crazy era for games.
It's not as expensive. It's still relatively affordable compared to this.
Yeah, it is. It's like $60 or something. It's not too bad.
This game should not be what it is. I mean, what is it, over 200 or something right now on
it's
eBay?
400.
I got mine for $3, so
that's too much.
I'm not a rich person, so it's like when I have the money and I can do it occasionally, I will, but it's not like a regular thing I try and do. To be clear.
Oh, hey, I mean, depending on how the games are, at least you can always sell them someday. So
Yeah.
and there's people that will buy them. I buy Funko Pops, and then I look at them.
And this is
And those go
technically
down
one
in
of the
value. Those don't go up.
cheaper games.
Funko Pops have dropped hugely in value for people,
Yeah.
but I'm not buying them to resell them. I'm buying them because I like them.
Someone's gotta like them.
Hey, I'm
They make
happy.
so many.
They go down in price. I can get them for $5 now. I'm like, this is wonderful. So I bought a couple today at a toy spot, but that's not what we're here for. For Blood Will Tell. And Joseph, what is your history with this game?
So my history with this game was back in college, I had a friend who, I don't know why they had this game, but they did. And I remember going over to their house on the weekends and trying to beat this game. I don't recall if we ever did, because this was almost 20 years ago, so I don't really recall that. But I was also familiar with this property from the manga originally before this game came out, so that was kind of knew some of this property prior to the game.
Yeah, this is just a Dororo game, even though it's not called Dororo.
It is in Japan.
Yeah, it's Blood Will Tell for some reason.
Yeah, well,
Tezuka Osamu's Dororo. Osamu's.
Yep.
But
And that's your history with it.
like I said, it was one I heard about just as a rare game, and then you suggested playing it, and I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Fuck it. Why not? And you know what? It worked out okay. I like Sega. I've really been digging into Sega's like history. I am fascinated by the Dreamcast, so anything that's like around that era, I'm very much into. This feels like a distant cousin of a Dreamcast game that never happened in a way.
Okay, I think that's fair. I've only played one Dreamcast game, so I'm not able to really. It's not my genre or one of my histories, unfortunately. But for those that don't know, this is a third-person action game. I guess is the way to. I mean, it feels a lot like a boss rush game.
I mean, it's got levels, and there are bosses in the levels. It has some of the like Muso, like Dynasty Warriors, like kind of just kill a lot of dudes, but it's not like solely focused on that.
No, and it's got a very strange plot line. Like the whole idea is that I don't think you know all of it in the beginning, but you were pretty much sacrificed to a demon and you'd have no body parts, but then somebody somehow gave you body parts and you have arms that are sword blades. It doesn't make a lot of sense at first.
It's a fantasy story. You know, the child is sacrificed to the demons. The father gains all the power and wealth, and the child that's left to die is then adopted in a very Moses-esque way by an adventurer that can give them a body and give them a purpose.
Yeah, throughout the game, you do find out that the warlord, you're his kid, and he sacrificed you.
Yeah.
To the 48 Fiends.
That's a very classic, like, Osamu Tezuka-esque, like, backstory.
Yeah. It's an interesting... Remind me a lot of Onimusha. And that could just be because I play a lot of Onimushas for the show so far. I've done 3 with a 4th one coming up. So that could be part of it.
but it's this idea, okay, you gotta get your 48 body parts. And like that's just like the setup. Like that's like the overarching goal, and it's so clear and it's so just right there.
I mean, it works. It's just odd at times. Like, it's a very odd game. Like you were saying, Joseph, I'm really surprised that you knew someone that actually owned this.
Yeah, so am I. I mean, in hindsight, seeing how rare it is nowadays, it is very odd that I happen to find the one person who had a copy of this game. Because I don't think anybody had a copy of this game back in the day.
I mean, sometimes that just happens. People just end up with random shit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, depends on how you get your games. I mean, for me, I was constantly going to EB Games and Gamester when it was EB Games and GameStop and just buying games. And I bought a ton of PS2 and GameCube Xbox stuff.
Oh, yeah. Same here.
Yep,
I miss those days. I miss the 360. I miss when GameStop was actually good. So that was a long time ago.
It's so much easier just to like go on a shelf and just pick something out, and you'll kind of have a good time probably.
And see, one memory that always sticks with me is I remember almost buying a Gundam game, and my friend with me is like, "You don't even like Gundam." I'm like, "But I might. Why are you buying this shit?" And he talked me out of it. I kind of regret that to this day. But
it's the great thing of like when I was a kid, I got stuck in Kingdom Hearts, and I was like, I got the Xenosaga game. Let me boot this up and see how this is. And it's like that's just the magic of picking things up.
Mm-hmm. I miss rental stores because you could always try out the games first before committing to them.
Yeah, that too.
Same.
My copy is an ex Blockbuster copy even.
It's to have the sticker on it and everything.
Let me check the CD. No, they took that off, but it has like the Blockbuster barcode on the front.
That's funny. God, I'm surprised Blockbuster had a copy of this.
Also, they had really unique cases for the time, and so I'm feeling this. I'm like, yeah, this feels like a Blockbuster case.
Like, this is just a strange game that, like, Because I feel like this wouldn't have been like Blockbuster and be like, oh yeah, we got to get a copy of this. Someone's going to want this. I feel like this is whoever managed that store said, I want a copy of this.
I mean, it's a Sega game, and Sega, was still a big deal back then.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I'm sure it was kind of, well, we got to take all the Sega games.
They didn't really advertise this game in any way that I could recall. I'm trying to find advertisements for it.
Well, anime games back then were so rarely coming out.
That's true.
Yeah, it was kind of a taboo almost. Like, we can't really tell them it's an anime game because maybe they won't buy it.
Well, it's just so weird because while this is a game based off a property, the property hadn't been used at all since 1969. So it makes it even more insane that this is the one Sega picked.
Like, this is just a weird, like, why would you make this? And then also, why did you bring it to America? Like, I'm happy, but I'm just surprised.
I mean, this is the same year that they were putting out, let's see what else came out in 04. Astro Boy on PS2, Crazy Taxi 3, Feel the Magic on DS.
God.
Samurai Jack, The Shadow of a Coup on PS2 and GameCube.
Huh.
Yeah.
This is one of those really strange games. And, like, I had never heard anybody talk about this besides my friend, who I mentioned earlier. Like, just nothing. Like, this is a game that completely, I've never saw this cover before either. Like, I do know that. And I used to go to EB Games every single week.
Oh, yeah. I've never seen this cover.
Yeah, I've never seen. Yeah, like I said, I saw it on my friends, and that was it. Never saw it in the wild.
That is strange. And I also used to go to like every GameStop in Milwaukee that I could get to. So I was going to like 5 different ones. Like I would travel around them and look through used stuff because you never knew what you were going to find back in those days. God, I miss those days. But yeah, it's just odd. Oh, I mean, this game had some. I like the Japanese feel of a game where you're fighting demons. I really do like that. Where you're like,
oh yeah. It's Onimusha, it's Genji, it's a lot of games from this era specifically.
I've never played Genji either.
I played those recently. They're not bad.
Curious. I've always been curious about them.
Was that the giant enemy crab game?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
But did you know there was also one on PS2 before that?
I did, yes. Was it like the Forbidden City, I think it was? Was that
no, that's Bujingai.
That's Bujingai, okay.
Which is also on this podcast.
Genji, Days of the Blade is the PS2 one. Dawn of the Samurai is the PS2 one. PS3 one's Days of the Blade.
Oh, there's two PS2 ones?
No, there's Dawn of the Samurai on PS2, Days of the Blade on PS3. The PS3 one's the giant enemy crab, flip it over on its back for massive damage.
Okay, I know the PS3 ones. I think I have it because there weren't a lot of PS3 exclusives when I tried to buy them all.
Right.
Oh, this game keeps you interested with the story, like because throughout the game progresses, you fight different fiends, and then you get body pieces that have a little cutscene that was kind of cool. Like it was engaging enough throughout the story and the mechanics to keep me wanting to play this game.
Like it does enough that like because of the setup and kind of what you're supposed to do, it kind of gives itself a lot of room to just kind of do whatever it wants in between like the body parts, basically. Like you can have the story of this samurai cursed by an evil sword whose like sister or whatever wants revenge on you for killing him. Like, why not? Have fun with it.
What's cool too is the story feels almost episodic, like you're almost watching an anime because each chapter feels like its own self-contained story.
Yeah, and like anything can happen, and maybe it'll tie it back, maybe it won't.
I mean, that's fair. Each chapter kind of felt very much like its own thing. Is it I think the first chapter where you deal with the woman that is essentially a demon and eating the people and stealing all their money?
Yeah, stealing all their money.
Yeah. I did like that.
It's a very political story if you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And they're all like, she's helping us. Yeah, yes, it is. Seems very topical. A leopard eating their face. Who would have thought that'd be topical? So they do try to switch up the gameplay where you have your parts where you're, what the hell's his name? Dororo?
Dororo.
And then you have the kid that I didn't know was a girl until the very end of the game.
And then Dororo is Hakimaru is the main character. Well, Dororo, they don't tell you, like, they make you assume Dororo was a boy the entire story. That's, like, the point.
Okay, it wasn't just me. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a girl because of the voice, but we get the boy, and then you see, yep, no, she's a woman.
It's the classic, a girl can't be a thief. You got to be a boy to make your way out there in the world.
I feel like women would have been better thieves then and now, like, just because women can change what they look, how they look like easier than men can, and people are going to pay less attention. I don't know.
But Dororo is also like 12 or whatever.
Yes.
So
yeah,
I know. I just something I always think about when it comes to like Black Widow and stuff like in Marvel, and just the whole idea of how women can really like change what they look like. You won't even know. That's all.
That's true.
It's a thing I talk about with my wife off and on because we have a really good friend of ours who I've seen her in like multiple pictures look completely different people. So, but
yeah, I've had friends like that.
Yeah, some women just change what they look like. So that's what I'm thinking. But they do a good job of switching up. So you play as her, you play as the main character, and it doesn't I didn't mind it when it switched off. Like they kind of have stealth part, but you can really just run by and ignore everything, and it's fine.
They give you a reason to not mind switching. Like it's never like you have to, and it's really inconvenient. It's like this is a natural part where you're going to be helpful most.
And it goes along well with the story when it does happen. Like they get split up multiple times, and somehow they telepathically talk to each other.
Hyaki's just that cool.
Yeah. When you're got possessed by demons, you get psychic powers apparently.
That was the one part I didn't understand. Like, how are they talking? But
remember he had a talk with like that before he got a vocal cords.
Yeah, it was odd to question it.
I mean, the prologue of the game is really cool in that it's like all black and white and like very like not echoey necessarily, but it feels like it's really limiting itself because as Hyakimaru, you don't have like color, you don't have like full eyesight.
He doesn't have his eye yet, right? Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, he doesn't technically have eyes.
At first, I thought something was wrong with my game, but I wasn't sure why it was in black and white.
It does give you a warning that says, "Hey, this is meant to be this way. Don't freak out."
Is it safe to assume, Joseph, that you were playing an unofficial copy there, sir?
No comment.
Just like me? I'm playing this on Steam Deck. This game is not on PC, unfortunately.
No, this game's not on anything.
No, I've said on the show many times, this is one of those games that I don't ever see it being re-released. But then again, I've been proven wrong. I'm happily proven wrong in these cases. So
there might be a slight chance just because in the last couple of years, this property's kind of seen a big revival.
I mean, it's a decent enough game. I don't think you need to like do anything to it to like make it better necessarily. Like maybe make it a little bit easier. Maybe like do a little of like the polishing you do with like remastering games, but you could just re-release it. Like,
it would benefit just to be out there again because it's held up in 2025. Like I can't say it about every action game I play in this podcast, but this one held up. Like there's a reason to just kill the random monster because you can level up your 2 arm swords.
Yes, and
which
like
makes a big difference.
The localization is kind of whatever, but like the voice acting is kind of funny enough at times that it works.
It didn't bother me, and I did play this game mostly with sound.
Wow,
I know I'm trying to be better about playing with sound. It depends on the game, but I'm trying to be better about it. So I heard the dumb saving comment, I can save here quite often. And I just kind of chuckled to myself, I can save anywhere, sir. I've
upgraded my sword arms.
I was always happy when he said that, though. Because at one point, because you can use your sword arms, you can also use a sword. And at one point, I switched to the sword because it was more powerful. But then you guys were like, no, you want to level up your sword arm. And then midway to closer to the end of the game, you end up getting one of your real arms. So then you can use that sword or the weapon you've been leveling up and your other sword arm and level them both up and have more attacks. And it looks cool.
Yeah.
Like the game really expects cool you to use your sword arms. Like it doesn't expect you to switch to a sword and just use a sword. Except for one point in this game that it expects you to. I'm 99% positive.
I mean, I think it's fair. Like, I just kind of went back and forth depending on what I felt was necessary. Like, sometimes I just wanted to play with the sword. Sometimes I wanted the sword arms. And sometimes some bosses, it was better to be faster. And sometimes it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the bosses, I tend to use the sword. And then, plus, you do get some hidden swords later in the game that are just more powerful than your sword arms, regardless of how high level they are.
Yeah, and they have certain abilities set to the swords that will then make the boss fights easier. Some will protect you from electricity, some will protect you from poisoning. Like there are certain swords you're supposed to use for particular boss fights. You guys are right when you told me use your sword arms for the regular monsters and then use the sword for bosses.
Yeah.
I didn't listen, but you guys are right. I also had save states, so like if I got hit, I could just reload, which I did a lot. There was one point when I crashed the emulator a couple times because I kept saving a lot. I do that sometimes. When I'm trying to get through a part and not die, and I'm like, I can pull this off without getting hit. Sometimes like, no, you can't. But that's hard.
But yeah, I think it's cool seeing all the different ways that Hyakimaru gets tortured whenever he gets a body part. Like it seems like it's really painful.
Oh yeah, and they do it and sometimes they do it with like a CG cutscene just to really emphasize.
Oh yeah,
it's so strange.
Like there are points where you give him a body part as Dororo, you defeat a boss, and not as Hyakimaru, but it still counts. So he's just walking along, and all of a sudden, just immense pain.
Yeah,
I think he even says, I think he killed the feed or something like that.
Yeah, how is that possible? Yeah.
I mean, I was surprised they made you fight a couple boss fights with the little kid, and it worked okay. There's that really annoying one with the chariot you gotta like throw the bombs at. That was annoying. I mean, they give you unlimited health. Like you can keep getting health pickups in that room, but it was still annoying.
Yeah, there is some boss fights that were not amazing, but I feel like on the whole they were generally fine. Like there was the one
48 or 49 of them, like, and there's a couple of extras that you do, like, they were fine for what they were.
Yeah, like there was the one later on like the mountainside where it was just like a giant arm coming out of the ground.
That was
awful. You keep summoning the rock dudes.
That was chapter 3, which is all about fighting the mountain, and you fight like 4 or 5 different parts of the mountain before you finally kill it. That was annoying.
I just remember that arm I probably had to restart the most with because it was just like I can do this if I do it right, but like that bomb has to explode in the right way and everything else. Like it just has to go the right way, and if it doesn't go the right way, I'm fucked.
It was hard with save states to get it right, by the way. Like it's really easy to get your ass handed to you by that arm. I'm sure you guys saw.
Oh yeah.
I remember it's like, this is not fun.
But it
is good though that they make a Dororo unkillable, because if you like we get a game over when she dies, I would have failed so many times in this game.
I was worried when she first died, then I realized, she can die and it doesn't matter. Well, who cares then? Because you can give her orders, like you can tell her to come here or be. And at first I thought, it's going to be one of those type of games, but then it wasn't. So thank God.
I remember the first time you control her, I was just kind of like going about that first area, just getting as many health upgrades, because I'm like, surely these will end eventually, right?
No, you really help.
You can just keep doing it.
All those little red hearts, they keep. There's no maximum. That's cool. I didn't realize those were just. I got them when I saw them. I didn't really think much about it.
You could just keep banking though. Like it'll just keep going up. It's awesome. Like it just feels good.
I mean, this game lets you level up. Like, I mean, even though it is challenging, you could still just level up your swords. And I'm sure if you got them up to like 90, you would kill things pretty fast.
Oh, undoubtedly. And this is a game that like expects you to understand what you're doing.
Yes.
Like it ramps up pretty quickly, but once you're there and once you get it, it's fine.
And there's a lot of different there's a lot of different mechanics to this game too. Like you can switch your swords mid battle. You can throw things. You have as Dororo, but you have a gun. You have a rocket launcher on your leg. Like there's a lot of mechanics. There's a mechanic with the sword where if you hold down triangle, you can then do a button combo when you hit the enemy and daze them or something. I didn't do it very often at all. I couldn't get it to work.
It's only really important at the very end of the game.
Oh God. I don't want to talk about that yet, but yes.
And if you don't have that one sword, it's going to be the bane of your existence.
I can prove it. That is your bane, but we will talk about. I want to wait on that one.
Sure, that's fine.
This game also made me realize how much I love Animusha style games,
like
Japanese demons. I like that.
There's something to be said about Japanese mythology and the way that it just like informs games and makes them interesting. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I know a lot about Japanese history. So like a lot of the names I probably have heard before, or like I've heard similar ones, but I don't retain it necessarily. But it's still an interesting backdrop.
No, it is for sure, and it works well. I know a little bit of Japanese mythology because I really like mythology in general, but I don't know a lot. But I also do like to. Hey, there's no Nobunaga because we're not we're not playing Animusha, but I'm sure some people are real people.
Yeah, he's a real ambitious fellow, that Nobunaga.
I mean, he was. He didn't live that long, but he was. I watched a documentary about his entire career of being a warlord at one point.
He got a lot done in a short time.
He did. Right now, I'm on a kick. I found a YouTube channel. I'm watching a 9-hour documentary about Napoleon.
Ooh,
it's interesting. For some reason, no particular reason, I've been interested in how dictators came to power. No reason. Just been interested on that. So that's what I've been watching on YouTube.
Well, I mean, they have to sacrifice themselves to the demon and also sacrifice their child. But then they'll have another child that secretly has a heart of gold that will side with you at the end.
Was that the guy with one eye, or that was somebody else?
That was your brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you fight him a couple times. I was also weird when you fight a human character, and the game's like you have a sword, but he's using the blunt end of the sword. So I'm like, he's Rurouni Kenshin.
It's T2. He doesn't want to kill people needlessly.
All I could think of was Kenshin.
Never seen Kenshin.
The reverse blade sword.
Oh God. Yeah.
I used to really like Kenshin. I know that the guy is not good, the creator.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I don't know a lot. I just know he's a bad person.
Yeah, it's like it's astounding to say the least.
Some people are really shitty.
But I really appreciated the way like this game kept things interesting just by weaving a good enough story into the process. Like they finding the guy, like having Dororo want a sword and become like a samurai, and then like having the guy having the sword, stealing the sword. It's like, oh, the sword is evil. And then you think, oh, this is just the thing I wrap up and we move on. But it's like, no, his sister is like really mad that you killed him. And it's like, no, you don't understand. The sword was evil.
And he knew it too.
And like he wanted to die or whatever, and it was like, well, yeah, because the sword's just going to take him over, and it's not going to work unless that's permanently severed. But no, she didn't understand that, so she kept coming at you and coming at you and coming at you.
She gets. You have to beat her too, because by killing her, you get your leg, which then upgrades it goes from the knee cannon to he pulls out a fucking rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Oh, like that didn't exist at this time, but all right.
But it's funny too because like most of your fights with her are very like
It's
easy, and then she's like, "Fuck it, let's get the sword out."
You know, she got powerful.
yeah,
I
the
liked
final
it,
one was
though.
pretty tough.
I really did like fighting her, and I like how this game makes you fight. I mean, you fight a few demons that don't even give you a part. You just got to fight them again and again until you finally kill them. Like, it's nice. I mean, like I was telling a friend of mine, like this game has 48 bosses, but it really has more than that. Like, there's a lot of fucking boss fights in this game.
It's nice when it doesn't feel like everything is just tailored to get you through to the end. It's like there's some like flexibility in there.
Oh, like one, I'm curious if you guys did this. I have a problem in RPG-like games where I can level something up, especially in a game like this where there's going to be challenge. I start killing everything in front of me to get experience. Were you guys doing the same thing?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like early on, if the map had any red, when I left the map, there was no red.
Yes. Which was difficult at times because there were also certain parts where, because of saves, I didn't really have any healing stuff. So sometimes I had to like get around enemies because there was just nothing I could do.
Yeah, there's not. It's annoying that the only way to heal is to break pots, and certain ones will have healing items, and a lot won't. Some enemies drop healing items, but it's very random.
Yeah.
It's not reliable.
And sometimes Dororo, if you found any healing items with her, she'll like toss them out to you during battle randomly.
Oh, I thought she just give me everything all at once, but I could be wrong.
Sometimes she does, and then like I went into a boss fight and she's just like throwing.
Well,
I
think that goes from like from the commands you can give her, like look for stuff or attack or whatever.
Oh yeah,
like you can. It has very simple squad based commands if you want to say it like that. Your squad of 2. I probably enjoyed this than I ever enjoyed playing like a Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter game. I'll tell you that.
I have never played it, but I've always wanted to play that game. By the way, Dominic, funny you mentioned.
That's like the first game I think of when I think of like squad combat. Like it's like the one game I've tried.
Always come to Rainbow Six.
Same deal almost.
Yeah, it is. It's a Tom Clancy thing. So yeah,
I just never played them, and I'm like, huh. You bring up a good point.
But yeah, no, the levels are varied enough that like you go through the traditional. Here's the ice part. Here's like a fiery part. But it feels fine. It doesn't feel like it's going out of its way to like do something weird.
No, it never felt too much.
it feels very much like it felt like a game from that era. Like it had a template and it was kind of following it, but just made it interesting enough with like the fantasy horror Japanese mythology.
Yeah, like none of that's going to prepare you for a guy that's just forced to keep eating. Because his boss tells him to.
And it is nice that the game makes you to be, if you want to actually beat it, it makes you kill every single demon. Like,
but it doesn't make them like too inaccessible either.
No, a few are a little confusing, but like you go through a chapter and you can either revisit a chapter and fight a couple, and there's always about 1 or 2 that you have to come back to. Well, for chapter 1 and 2, you got to come back to after you beat chapter 6.
Yeah.
There's a few.
Yeah, got a little Metroidvania to it.
Well, you need the leg to get to one of them.
Right. But it's never like, oh, you have to be level 99 and do this and this and that. It's all like relatively doable once you get like a thing and then like a story beat.
Yeah. And it also is nice to you, and it has a map, which is nice. I like maps in games, by the way. And it shows you like where the bosses are. Sometimes there'll be a little like star, so it's not too difficult to figure out.
No, but there are some times where maybe it's just me, but I would just wandering around. I accidentally would trigger a boss fight.
I will say,
I guess we're doing this.
For level 1, when I went back to try to trigger the extra bosses, like I just wasn't doing it. Like I'm like, oh, do I need to like come back like way later when I have more upgrades? It's like, no, I just wasn't doing it right.
You had to break certain rocks. I mean, there's some stuff that I don't think I would have put 2 and 2 together had the guide not told me what to do.
Sure.
Cutting down the tree to get the
that was by accident.
It was one of them.
Like,
Without
one with
I just hit it for some reason.
There's like one with a lantern you have to do something with.
Oh
yeah, that one I know. And there's one with these statues where you have to shoot them with your rocket launcher, but it can only be like which one glows, and if you forget which one glows and you wait till it goes away, then try to hit it, and nothing will happen. You have to go leave the area and come back.
Yeah,
I saved state and tested it. So, but everything felt good. Like, I mean, with this game being hard, you still could get through it just by you can repeat all the chapters. You can just go in a chapter, kill enemies, pick up items. Like, there's certain swords that will drop by you breaking a particular statue or item or killing certain enemies or just finding it in the level. You can find different swords. You can just replay chapters and at any point just save and leave the chapter.
It's the best kind of game like this where it just feels doable.
Yes.
Like nothing feels too like, oh, I could never do that. That seems like a lot of time and a lot of just headache for nothing.
No, I felt doable. Even the boss fights, like there's a lot of them and they have pretty big health bars, but if you get your combos off and you time it right, you can massacre them.
Yeah, once you know how to be bold, if you be bold, it will just reward you.
Mm-hmm. There's no like really dodge button in this, right? Or no?
There is not.
Okay, it wasn't just me. I also didn't find out about the sprint button until way late in this game. I had to. There's a part where you're being chased, and if you don't sprint, you ain't gonna make it. That's how I learned what the sprint button was.
But you have like a jump, and that works well enough.
Well, yeah, the sprint was just nice to get me faster from point A to point B.
Yes. Well, and then you upgrade your sprint as you go along too.
Yeah. I think some swords also make you move a little faster too, because all the different swords you get will have like different specialties, so you equip them.
I would love to see like a George Miller made Dororo story or movie or something like that. I feel like that would go together really well. Yeah, like because George Miller, like if you watch his movies, he's always been interested in like showing people living in the wasteland with like deformities and like things that came about because of all the radiation and things like that. Oftentimes they're kind of in the background. Sometimes they're more central, but I feel like a story of a guy taking back all of his body parts would be totally up his alley.
That's fair. They do reuse some of the boss designs, but it still always feels fresh enough. Like, even when they do reuse it, it wasn't that common that they reused it, the models.
No.
Didn't bother me either at all.
Again, there's 48.
I know, but still, like, they find a way to make it feel unique and fresh.
Yeah.
Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, no, the demons were definitely, I think, the big highlight for me in this game. I like the design of all of them, and like we mentioned, they all, with the exception of the mountain one, I don't think there was really any that were unfair or just cheap. I felt like they were all really well developed, and like we said, they're all very doable. The
mountain was just too long. That was the issue with the mountain. It was like 3 or 4 boss fights of different parts of it, and it was hard. I remember
some levels were easier than others, for sure.
Like with the arm that would come down and hit you, and then it would sometimes like you could barely hit it, and you had to get it in the right spot where the stone wasn't, so you could hurt it. Like that was a hard chapter.
But like chapter 2 with the dragon's blood sword, that one's relatively one of the easier ones.
I found it easier, yeah.
Like but you chase them around a few times and that's it.
You could level. I mean, you could level. So if you're really struggling, you could still play the game and get stronger.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, you can't level up your own stats other than getting body parts, right? Like there's no other leveling besides your swords, I don't think. Okay. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, that's correct.
Well, I was worried about this game. This was a game that I was worried that I was going to be able to beat in time, and then I beat it in a lot of time. But I got really into this game. I think I was like, because I was trying to beat a chapter a day, and I beat like chapter 1, chapter 2, and then I just didn't stop.
Like it took me, because I was playing on real hardware, it took me like about a week or so, maybe a little bit longer, but that's about what I expected.
Me over a week, and I fell in love with the gameplay in this game. I got into it. I know save stating, yes, of course, but hell, there was one night where I stayed up I stayed up later than I should have, and I just didn't put the game down. I kept playing, and I don't do that with games.
That's dangerous.
I just didn't want to. It was like I usually go to bed about 10:30. Like to go to bed. Sometimes even 9:30. I go to bed. I went to bed at 11:30 because I didn't want to put down the game, and 11:30 is the limit. Like that's not me. I did it twice with this game.
I dare say I think you enjoyed this game more than I did.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it
because this is very much a game like, okay, I think I've had enough with this chapter for now. I'm going to bed.
No, that's fair. But you also were playing this legit where you didn't have the ability to save, load.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's a little different. I mean, plus this was handheld. It was on my Steam Deck, so it was just kind of there with me. Like, there was a point where I laid on my couch in the dark and just played this. How I played this when I started this game, I played it in a parking lot of a hospital waiting on my wife and her mother-in-law while they were visiting somebody. I played a good hour of this. So, this is why I love Steam Deck.
That's entirely fair.
Hey, that's why I played SA2B once on a laptop. I was also visiting a family member in a nursing home for my mother-in-law and my wife, and then I was sitting there playing SA2B on my laptop.
Is that Sonic Adventure 2 Battle? One of my favorite games ever that I never got to do the episode for, and I'm very sad about.
Sorry. I will someday play Sonic Adventure, maybe someday.
Well, that I have more critical things to say about.
That game is, I never played. I've only played it for like an hour once.
That game I will fucking tear apart limb by limb.
So there's a reason why it hasn't been on the show. I don't want to play it. So I mean,
It's a game you can beat. Like it's not like it's super hard. So on that thing alone, it's doable.
well, I'll have save states too. So if I can play a game with save states, there will be save states.
I don't blame you.
Well, sometimes it's just I want my blankie. That's really what it comes down to. I want to be able to be like, hey, if things get bad, I don't have to bang my head against a wall the entire week and feel like, oh God, I'm gonna miss. I'm not gonna beat this. I'm gonna fall behind on the schedule. I can be like, I have my blankie and I can get through this game. And sometimes I don't need it. There have been games I've done for the show where I don't need save states. But this was a game that I didn't want to learn. I'm gonna make a dumb comparison, but this game felt like Dark Souls a bit to me. Without dropping your souls, but it has a lot of bosses and they're kind of challenging, but they're also simple if you learn their patterns.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I mean, just because it's so many boss fights,
the bosses,
and it's one of those games that if you're patient and learn, you'll do better. Versus if you just wiggle your controller and try to constantly hit, you will die terribly.
Yeah, it's a game that I feel like maybe has more of a place now than it did at the time.
Yes.
Because at the time, it's more of like, is this a Devil May Cry? Is this just an action game? Is this a Dynasty Warriors game? And it's kind of like some of those, but it's not fully any of them.
It's closer to a Dark Souls style game than any of those you just mentioned.
Right, but that wasn't around back then.
No, not at all. I mean, because Devil May Cry is very much about action and jumping around like a crazy man. Like that's how Devil May Cry is, and doing big combos. And this is not that type of game.
Right. And
this also isn't like what some of the other stuff that we would have had. I mean, it's not like a Dynasty Warriors game. It kind of looks like one when you come, if you're being stupid and you're looking at, well, it's Japanese, so it must be Dynasty Warriors. And you do have areas where you fight a lot of enemies, but not anything like that either. It's very unique for the time.
Yeah. Although I do like the objective where it's like, defeat 100 enemies, go.
Those are fun. Especially when you're powerful and you can just like rip through people. It is nice.
Yeah.
Also, like in the areas where you can like knock down the guard towers and they just collapse on all
and
of them.
Somehow the enemies survive, then you got to fight them. But okay.
Yeah.
I was like, what? But all right. Also, this game has never been at a Games Done Quick, apparently.
Yeah,
oh, really?
I don't think so. I Googled it, and if it's in a Games Done Quick, it comes up. But
really?
they tend to do more of the well-known, popular stuff. They don't do a lot of deep cuts like this.
Sure. Though I'm sure if there's like a game that like has an interesting break or something, they would do it.
Sometime, but this is also a longer game. The world record for this, at least as of 3 years ago, was 3 hours and 31 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, but
That's
they don't.
pretty good for this game.
For Games Done Quick, I feel like they wouldn't want to put something this long that is as unknown and not popular.
Unless there was like a gimmick.
Yeah, and plus you got to have the right. How many people actually speedrun this game that go to Games Done Quick and will recommend it? It's just not a well-known game. Even I was Googling, like every time before we do an episode of this show, I try to look up whatever we're going to talk about, and this doesn't have a lot of videos. There's not a lot of reviews about this game. It's not well known.
Yeah, I mean, like the wiki has like some of the scores it was given, like some 5s, some 7s, something like in that range.
Why so low? I wonder. This is not a bad game.
Yeah,
I think
0.8.
I think it was unfairly like compared to, like we said, Devil May Cry, Dynasty, where like those games we just mentioned. I think it was compared to those. And
yeah, like
it's not.
nothing
I
like
don't think it's a fair comparison.
it has more story and cutscenes than like a Dynasty Warriors. It has more RPG elements than a Devil May Cry. It has like again, the voice acting and all that is not like amazing, but it does the job. It's kind of funny in a way.
I had no complaints with it.
Right, like now that I think we are more accepting of like other types of games than we were back then. Back then, it was just like, okay, what's top of the line? What's doing it the best? I feel like.
That probably was it. I mean, games were expensive, sure, but not really at the same time. I mean, the amount of PS2 games I bought for under $10 back then is not a low amount.
Right.
So, like, I was a guy who worked part-time and, like, I spent a lot of money on games. I didn't really work a whole lot. I didn't really have a lot of money, but games were cheap if you waited. But this is what, 2004?
Yeah.
So this is getting near. I mean, PS2 is still around for a couple more years at this point.
I mean, we got Sakura Wars in like 2010 in the US. So
okay. Well, PS2 didn't die, but I mean, like 360 was coming out and things were starting to change. So they still had a couple years though that it could have sold and been around. Like, but yeah, it's weird to me. Like, I was really surprised with how much fun I had with this game and how much I enjoyed it. Didn't want to put it down.
But like that's kind of the story of the PS2, right? It's like certain things dominated, and then like the gaming landscape, while trying to be more diverse, didn't really hit the stride until like the 360 generation, like later on.
Achievements.
Well, achievements, but like the Deadly Premonitions and like things like that,
Yeah.
that kind of open the doors. I think are like the influence of that stuff. I think is still underrated.
Well, I think a lot. I mean, the reason I bring up achievements is I think that opened up people. It opened up me to play games that I never would have touched otherwise.
Sure, yeah.
And if I did it, I'm assuming I can't be the only one. Not in this
I mean,
case.
a lot of people play like those Avatar license games because they were easy achievements.
I did. I really want to go back and play that game now because I really like Avatar. But I did get 1,000 point in the Burning Earth game too, because you could do it all in the first area with
Right.
the combo. I bet it's not a bad game though. I never played it. I've always been curious, but never got around to it yet because I just don't know if anybody will want to play it with me or if it's worth playing. There's that.
Put it on the list.
I actually don't own it, and it's not. I mean, 360 can be emulated, but I'm kind of waiting for it to get a little older before I start emulating 360s and asking people to.
I mean, you could probably buy a copy. It's probably $10 or less. I'm gonna guess.
I'm sure I could buy a copy, but do I? I don't like to ask people to have to hunt down copies of games. It's just like I don't know, it makes me feel bad.
I mean, but that's also up to them, right? Like, do you want to do this? Yes or no?
Yeah, now they have more people. There's no like back when it used to be like 2 or 3 particular co-hosts and like you're on every episode. That was different.
Oh yeah.
But now it's like yeah, you are right. But also I don't know if I want to play it. So there's that too.
Yes, that Avatar game is less than $10 on the 360. Yeah,
not the hardest task in the world.
Hey, there's a part of me that thinks about those games every so often. I wouldn't mind playing the entire series because it's a good show.
But the games are not all as good as the show, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm positive they're not. But there are 3 games for that go through the entire show for all 3 books.
There's a Korra game as well.
Platinum make an Avatar game?
They did the Korra game.
Didn't
Korra game, yes,
make an
which
Avatar
you
game? The
cannot buy.
Bayonetta guys?
For the record,
that's
unfortunately.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's a physical copy, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, there's a physical copy, yeah. But I like to buy my games digital so they can go on my Steam Deck.
That's very fair.
Okay, the first one is 5.5 hours, the second one is 4.5 hours, and the third one is 5 hours, and they all are on PS2.
Something to think about.
Do I smell minis?
I mean, you're in your PS2 kit right now.
I wouldn't use it to take up an actual slot of the schedule, but I sure as hell wouldn't mind putting it as a mini just because there's no point in asking for a question. Nobody, what are people going to say? What the fuck are you playing this for? So,
isn't it just everything?
I get a lot of comments for this game. You can believe that.
Everyone's like, why the fuck are you playing Blood Will Tell for? What the fuck is that even?
I mean, the Game Informer group, they knew, because the Overblood group is a little crazy.
Yeah, I forgot that was even a thing.
The only reason I knew it is because of my friend kept mentioning it. Like, this game, like I say, but we brought this game up a lot between our conversations. This one and Spy Fiction was another one he kept talking about us doing.
Ooh, Spy Fiction has always sounded fun to do.
So that's another one that's in my brain for 4 years because he left the show in 2021 and I've still been thinking about them. So
it's a sweary game, I believe, Spy Fiction.
Games live in my, like, anything that gets talked about for the show, a lot of it lives in my head. I don't always get to it.
Extermination also is one of his games. That's right.
Wow, I did not know that was one of his games.
Yeah,
he wrote it. He didn't direct it, but like
Extermination is never played more than the demo.
Talk about a game with dialogue. Oh boy.
You know what's interesting is that American and then the British version are 2 entirely different games. Like they have completely different plots
weird.
and completely different character designs.
Made by the same people?
Yeah, it's the same development team. They switched it.
That's really curious now. You have my attention.
Different countries.
Okay. One of the, I think it's chapter 4 in Blood Will Tell when you're fighting all the foxes. That was fun. I thought that was a good chapter. I think that was 4 or 3. I just remember having to fight foxes and run around a battlefield and
yeah, and they kept
the last one's
all
Nine
the boxes
Tails.
kept getting bigger each time you got to the new one.
Is that the one where you go through this? You go through like the town.
I think so.
And you have to like go across the bridges.
Yeah, and then they burn the town at the end.
Yeah, it's also
And I also enjoy it that after you beat you can also find some of the hidden fiends just in the level, like just by running around, and then some and the game will tell you like, hey, you're missing 3 bosses here.
Yeah,
go back and find them, and usually if you go right back, they'll be glowing to let you know where they are.
And also your character
he does say,
like demon.
Yeah, he will say, which also is how I found one of the demons near the end of the game because I could not find the last one I was missing, so that helped me. because he told me, he's like, I smell a demon here. I'm like, oh, thanks. Oh, where it is. Because the guy, I'm using the guide, but I kind of like got off track of the guide, so I didn't know what the fuck I was missing exactly. I knew where it was, but not exactly. It was in the last level. I got lost in that fucking tower. That last level is something else.
It is.
Man, I ran through it 3 times. Once for the regular chapter, the second time because I was looking for the bosses that I missed, the third time because I didn't grab the sword at the very end of it and had to run through the entire level to get the sword I was missing.
That's like the one with like a lot of like significant diversions too.
It's with there's a puzzle you got to you move a bridge around, jump on the bridge, and go back and forth till you drop down a hole. Yes.
That's the one where you have to like hit the switch and it like changes the walls, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's annoying. It's very annoying.
I mean, they tried stuff at least. I don't know.
Oh no, they do try stuff, and it was annoying on the third time of doing it because I missed the sword that I needed, and I was annoyed. That's why I was annoyed.
Yeah.
And then I didn't mind it the first time, and I didn't mind the second time. The third time, now I was irritated because I was right by the room with the sword, but I didn't know the sword was in the room, so I didn't go up. I just finished the boss and left. I was literally one room away from where I had to go to get the sword that you need to beat the game. Technically need that sword.
Explore all your options.
Think about that. Do you actually need that sword, or can
there's like
actually
2
beat
versions
the boss
of the
without the sword? I don't actually know.
There's the one that does 8th, and there's like one that does 4s.
I had the 4s.
There's one that does 8s.
I guess we can talk about it now. So we're gonna. So after you beat all 48 fiends, and you go through the game. Because first you beat the game in quotation, and you get a little scene where it shows credits, but there's still about like 6 fiends left or more, depending on how many you killed after you beat chapter 6. But the game you out and has credits, and you could be like, hey, I beat the game, but you didn't beat the game. And then when you go back in the game, you finish the rest of your fiends. After you get all but one fiend, you find out that the last fiend is inside Dororo's body, and then you find out Dororo's a woman because it's been like 5 years later.
Yeah.
All grown up.
He's been training all this time, Hyakimaru, to separate the demon from the person that he's come to know and love.
Because he thinks he has to kill her, right, to get the demon out?
Well, the whole reason is that he doesn't want to, so he travels to find a way not to kill her.
Okay. And, man,
that's why he comes back and she's like all grown up.
I thought that was cool, though, and also reminded me of Animusha again, because in Animusha 1, you have a female ninja. But she wears yellow. Yeah, but it wasn't just me. Thank you, Joe.
Very similar in design.
I don't remember. I played Onimusha 1. I don't remember.
You played it for this podcast.
I did.
So that was a while ago, though.
But yeah, so then you separate the demon from Dororo, and then it's like a 3 or 4 phase boss battle.
4 phases, sir. Technically 5, depending on if you count the heart a phase. So it kind of depends on if you fuck up or not. But it is so it is an epic fucking fight. And it took me... So one of the nights I stayed up to 11 was I got to that final part around 8 o'clock, and I was up to 11 to finish it. Because I got to the boss, I got through the entire boss fight. Thank you, Save State. And then I got to so you have to fight a first form, go through an entire health bar. Then you have a second form, you got to climb on its back, go through another entire health bar, and knock a bunch of like crystals off his back. It's really annoying. And I forget what the third form is. The first one...
Well, the first one is just flying around.
It charges you.
Okay. Second one is I think the crystals, and the third one is the one with
right.
God, what is it?
There's
well, the charges you was like the last one before the
fourth one. There's a third one, but they make you go through 3 like health bars essentially. And the fourth one, he flies and charges at you, and you have to be far enough on the screen, close to where he's coming, hit the square button, and then keep comboing him to deplete his life bar, and then he spits out like a heart, or somewhere there's a heart, and you have to hold down triangle, which I never did, by the way, this whole game. And then it puts you into a button combo scene where like circle will come up, X, triangle, square, and you have to follow these button combos. But they want you to do 48 hits.
Yes.
I don't know what the time frame is, but it ain't slow.
Right, and like most of the swords up to this point, they count as 1 hit. But then you get a sword that every hit counts as 4, and then another sword every hit counts as 8.
But if you're like, so I had save states, and I could do it like the first couple scenes pretty much perfectly because I memorized them.
Right.
I would do them perfectly. I would save even with using save states and being like having it right on par, knowing exactly what each row is going to be. I couldn't get past 44 in time. I got to 44 before I ran.
Incredible.
It's called cheating.
But I really think it's meant that you're supposed to get one of those other swords at least.
I do too, because I'm watching a speedrun, so I'm curious if they do it or they opt to run through the entire level to get the sword. They probably just get the sword. But it was like, I was like, my God. And then so I was at that end phase and I had to leave the stage, go through, find the damn sword. And I had to watch a YouTube video to see where he went because I couldn't remember how to get through through some of the last dungeon to find the fucking sword and then go through the entire boss fight again. And I beat the game at like 11 o'clock and I was like so happy. I remember telling my wife, I'm like, I did it. And she's like, okay.
I mean, yeah, playing on real hardware, it's like getting through all of that and be like, oh, this seems impossible. What am I missing here?
I don't know how you did it, sir.
Well, because it's like for me, it's like those swords were never like top of like the line. They were never like the highest level sword, so I didn't really pay attention. But I remember reading and it's like, oh, every hit counts as 4, every hit counts as 8, and I'm like, oh, that seems neat. I wonder what that's for. I thought it was like flavor text. Nope, it's the thing you need most of all.
I was surprised how it's almost necessary. I feel like it's necessary.
Like that feels like something that was cut. Like there was like another element of like some swords being more needed. Like it's still there, but it's not like highlighted in the same way that it is at this point.
I mean, none of the other swords are completely necessary.
Right. Like some of them are cool. They can be useful.
It wasn't the same.
But yes, you get the heart out, you stab it a bunch. Finally, you're able to defeat it. Sever the demon from Dororo.
It is so fucking epic.
Well, because like that ramming part, it's like you gotta like be able to combo enough just to tire it down. Like that part alone is like really fucking cool. Because that's some like Bujingai ass like blocking parrying level shit.
It was a lot, and I can see how. Yeah, I did not like it. I didn't like it. I liked it more once it ended.
Yeah,
I can't imagine how you did this on actual hardware and had to really do it. Like I
learned each part. Each part on its own was not terrible, except for like I had a lot of trouble parrying that rush move.
Yeah,
What do you mean parrying?
The timing of that
like,
was really throwing me off.
Because like if you can really fuck it up easily if you're not standing in the right spot and don't press the button at the right time.
Well, okay, that's what I mean. I thought maybe there was a parrying mechanic in this game that I never knew about.
No, but like that's kind of what it wants you to do. Basically, is like
yes, you are right.
Press the button enough that you are successfully parrying its attack.
Thank you,
so
Joe.
you're saying it's like
it is that Bujingai moment where in Bujingai that's just like a normal mechanic that you're just comboing and like fucking parrying everything the other guy is doing, and it looks really cool and flashy.
Fair enough. I think it's funny how we've done 2 really random PS2 games now on the show like that.
I mean, hell yeah, that's what I'm here for.
I know.
We got our Kingdom Hearts shit, and we got everything else.
I am trying to do more random stuff that doesn't exist on as much as like the popular games.
I mean, you know,
there's a boss that was stealing faces that you had to kill.
You got to keep it varied, right? You got to draw people in,
and I got to keep me entertained.
Right. Like you don't want to play, 50 open world games in a row.
If you notice on the schedule, because you see the schedule, and you see they're not exactly very close together for a reason. By the way,
except sometimes you do that for some reason.
It's when I fuck up and don't realize that one's an open world game, or I had to adjust something because somebody wasn't free in the weekend it was going to be.
Sure.
I try not to put the same genre too close together. I try to switch up genres each week.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like last week was Dragon Ball Z Boost Fury, and then this week is this. If I go from a top-down action RPG to a sort of action RPG slice 'em up game, like I try to switch things up so I don't get overwhelmed and bored.
Yeah, and next week's Metal Gear Acid 2, and that's a card game.
I forgot that was next week. Thank you. I already beat that. So fucking weird ass.
They're all anime.
I was curious to watch the anime for this show because the anime is recent, right? On Prime.
Oh yeah, there's a new anime. There's also like a 60s anime too.
Yeah, that's when it came out.
Oh.
Yes, which is funny. The 60s anime, since just a little history, the original manga got canceled before it could end. So the original anime had to just make up an entirely different ending for the series. Because in the manga, he does not kill all the demons by the time the book.
Did it come back for a third to finish?
No, there was no finish. In fact, there was no definite finish until this game came out. This was
amazing
at the time, the definite finish of the property. Yeah. So the people. So 1969 is when the manga got canceled, and there was no ending until this game in 2004.
That's kind of ridiculous. I'm also surprised this game came to America.
Yes.
That's kind of the weirdest thing. Is like,
which is because
anime games were so rare, and like they were usually tied to like franchises that were more well known, like Gundam or Dragon Ball.
And also, I mean, the at the time when this game came out, the manga and the original anime
Tezuka was
not
a name
even in America
because of like Astro Boy and whatnot. But
like
I wonder if it would have done better if it was called Dororo Blood Will Tell.
Yeah, but
I don't think so. think it's
I don't know. I still think it would have been an unknown property.
I think it's too. I mean, it's still unknown to me to this day. Like I didn't until we did this recording. We started talking, we made the group. I didn't know about the anime or the manga.
Oh yeah, like it's a story ostensibly about Dororo. Like it's about Hyakimaru, but like it's the classic, side character gets the time to shine.
Well, the original premise why it was called Dororo, it was supposed to actually follow Dororo as she grows up from being a kid into adulthood.
Right.
You're supposed to follow her the whole time. Like the story with the 48 Demons was supposed to be like the first arc, and then the next arc was going to be her on her own adventures.
Oh, and I know you're dying to know this, Dominic, but X-Play gave it a 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
That fucking show. I watched that show. I shouldn't have.
Me too. Don't feel bad. I was just curious. I'm like, yeah, that's one of the few reviews on here is an X-Play review.
I'm sure they said it was kind of fun, but weird in Japanese, and so therefore it can't be great.
What RPG was it that they said?
Yeah, Beaten Kaito said some shit like that.
Kaito's.
X-Play was not. I remember really enjoying X-Play, but it was not good. Didn't Adam Sessler turn out to be nuts? Also,
I think that's more of a recent thing, but yes, he's definitely gone off the deep end.
I don't know what happened to Morgan Webb.
Yeah.
I don't think she's ever done anything that I've noticed after X-Play that I'm aware of, at least.
They tried to reboot G4 in general a few years ago, and it did not last.
Yeah, because they hired a crook too to be part of it, so it didn't work out too well for them.
Oh, it was
The completionist. He's a crook.
Oh, I don't pay attention.
I can tell you the whole story. I'm not going to on here, but I could.
Yeah.
All I know is that Abby from Giant Bomb was working there, and then I felt bad that it didn't work out.
I felt bad that it fell apart too. I mean, I had no interest in it. I could care less, but I still felt bad that it fell.
Yeah.
That's a whole other story and topic.
But like speaking for a moment about Osamu Tezuka, the author of the original manga, I am a huge fan of his work because he is such a prolific writer. He has so many stories and so many just different things he made. Like they're just all so different. Like you can say, oh yeah, he's the Astro Boy guy, he's the Kimba the White Lion guy, so he's very child friendly and very like, he's the godfather of anime, as it were.
Pretty cool.
But then you have stuff like Dororo, which is a little more mature, a little more like, a quest for something that like older teens and shit can get into. But then you have stuff like a manga of his I really like is MW, which is this really dark, like post World War II, like it's him very much trying to appeal to like the adult audiences with like a lot of murder and assassination and intrigue and like topics that were taboo for the 70s. Metropolis is also fantastic.
He also did Metropolis, that's a great one. And then it's going with the adult World War II. He did a series called Adolf, and it follows 3 different people during World War II that are called Adolf, and it falls from the start of the war to the end of the war. It's an absolute fascinating read.
Like
I would recommend that. It's also really, I was just gonna say it's also really cool because Japanese people tend to not really talk about World War II.
He's very much
too
something
much,
that seems to have a really good there's a really good method of just coming up with interesting ideas that have interesting like developments. And sometimes they finish and sometimes they didn't.
I mean, that still happens today quite often with things, so we don't get endings.
No, but hey, sometimes they turn out like this game, where this game had the ending after all these years.
That's just really surprising to me. Again, I still can't believe this game that this exists. The more I hear about it, like this is just so strange to me.
Maybe someone at Sega just really was into it and like, hey, we could finish the story.
That's exactly what it was. I found an article talking about the history of this game, and basically when Sega got the rights, they already had like a blueprint for like kind of an action game like this, but then they were like, oh, we can use any of his properties, and I guess the producer was like a huge fan of the manga growing up. So
cool.
That is the only reason this game.
I like when people like something that they liked when they were younger, and then they get the ability to do something with it because they have money and a job where they can like, we're gonna make this happen. We're gonna spend the company's money to make this happen. So,
something else that'll be interesting too, especially as you get more, because you're gonna do the Astro Boy game eventually, hopefully.
Yeah, I'm doing the Game Boy Advance one this year for sure.
Yeah, that'll introduce you to something else that Tezuka was really interesting about. That he had a thing called the star system, in that he liked to reuse characters and like designs as if they were actors. So like you'll come across a dude, it's like, oh, that's Duke Red, but that's not Duke Red. That's somebody else.
I'll be curious to see more of his work now. I was curious to watch that anime that came out in 2019, but I just forgot about it. Didn't get to it.
That happens.
That's very good.
No, that's fair.
Very different from this game, so it's almost
shows
like
are weird for me. I get into my phases.
Yeah.
Right now I'm in Gundam phase, so I'm enjoying my Mobile Suit Gundam from 1979.
There's a lot of Gundam games to play.
Oh, I know. The only thing, that's what I was doing yesterday and today, finding all the Japanese ones that didn't come here and finding English patch versions of them. So
Very
I have a
fair.
nice collection that I'm like, maybe I'll get to these someday. Who knows? But at least I want them available in case that day ever comes and the internet decides to get upset. So they exist. But I just want to, I know we're kind of running out of things to say. A couple things that I want to mention that, like with the gameplay and just the way the boss fights are. Only a few felt really challenging, and that was usually in the beginning of the game where I was still learning the game. After a while, like everything felt doable had I just paid attention.
Yeah.
Like a Dark Souls game. Like you can just learn. Nothing felt overly. I mean, I don't like that you can heal during battle. You don't have items, but it's fine.
Yeah, I
love
would
the
agree.
Japanese aesthetic so much. I'm a sucker for Japanese mythology stuff like this. It is my thing.
You'd probably be into the Sengoku Basara series.
What is that?
It's kind of a Capcom attempt at this kind of stuff. Kind of like Onimusha, but like a little more Dynasty Warriors-y. There's a PS2 game called Devil Kings that started.
Oh, that's okay. That was ringing a bell.
I have wanted to play Devil Kings
Okay.
for a
There's
very
another
long
game.
time, and I'm pretty sure I own a copy of it.
Like that's a pretty like big series in Japan, but it has not had that many games come over to America. But Devil Kings is like one of the few.
I've always been curious about it. I picked it up. Pretty sure I own it. I've never played it.
I've had it
Pretty
at
sure
one
I
point.
own
I think I played a little bit of it at one point, but
It's kind of Dynasty Warriors-y.
yes.
Another strange game, I think it's Japanese, Nano Breaker. That's another one that's for PS2 has always been on my mind, too. That did, yes.
That's another weird Konami joint.
I think that did come
back
to
when
the
Konami
States.
was doing a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's just I just remember being really bloody, and I'm like, this looks fun, and I never got around to playing it.
Yeah, I remember that was the game. They're like, it's not blood. It's
Nano Breaker
oil.
also reminds me of the game
It's your killer
Breakdown.
robots or something, and it's
A game that I want to do, but I need to make sure I can emulate it, and I will put it on the show at some point. I want to play Breakdown one day.
And if we're talking about weird Konami games of that era, there's also Hybrid Heaven on N64.
I know of it.
That
is a.
It's a weird ass game. It's like their N64 attempt at Metal Gear, but really weird. Yes, it's like an RPG, but also a fighting game in
as
combat.
an RPG.
Okay, never played it. I just know of it.
Konami was really cool when they were making games, and now they're kind of starting to make games again, but it's not the same yet.
All right, should we go to questions and comments, memories, or anything else you guys want to say?
Well,
I feel like we're
good.
Okay, let me pull up what I have. All right, from the I Watch the Entire Obelid Super Replay group, I have 2 comments from Patrick Ariano. I'll never forget Matt Helgeson's review of this game where he legit wrote, "Blood will tell, more like this game smells like poop."
Yeah, sure.
Why would you put that in a review?
Because that was the style back then.
Okay.
It was just fucking stupid shit.
And from Rob St. John, is stupid expensive, and he has sword arms. That's what I know. Well, both are true. So, right. And then from the official Laser Time community, I got a couple. From J. Alberto Pinheiro, absolutely loved it. Nothing my parents would buy me, so we borrowed it from an older cousin. It begins in black and white, and that alone was mind-blowing. Plus, the first time I was old enough to notice scaling difficulty, steady, incremental, harder bosses as you went, and not to mention the Japanese/samurai aesthetic mixed with gunpowder weapon. This is prototype Sekiro, and the story is compelling too.
Yeah, they're just comparing it to a From Software game as well. That makes sense.
Yeah, because it feels like one. Really does. Sekiro is a game I do not want to play, but I want to play. But that game looks like it would chew me up and spit me out. I know. Oh, I know. And it just looks like even people who I know are good at Souls games struggle with that game. Like I've seen gameplay of that, and I'm like, fuck no. Like I can beat Bloodborne. I did it in a week for this podcast. I can, but I don't think I could do Sekiro. Like I don't think it's possible. Not in my schedule.
How good are you?
You mean by rolling a lot and being invincible?
In the Soul games.
I don't parry.
What you gotta do is you just gotta plan like 6 months of short games around it.
Yeah,
that way you just get a bunch of time banked. Just like, fuck it, let's go for it.
Dark Souls 1 I want to do, and the Dark Souls series I've thought about, but it's just,
It's a lot to ask for. It's like doing these Xenoblade games.
Those aren't. Xenosaga is happening. We'll see about Xenoblade someday. Huh?
Xenoblade, they're all like 100-hour RPGs. That's like a different. Xenosaga, the entire trilogy is probably less than 100 hours still.
Yes, it is.
So it's a very different beast.
Over the course of a year, we'll be doing them. So, all right. And then from Greg Moore, this is an all-time favorite. What a perfect premise for a character action game, and developed by one of the great action developers of the era, Red Entertainment. I like how they implemented Dororo as a Tales-like support character who is unlikable and be controlled by a second player for casual asymmetrical co-op. I did not know that.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
You did 2 players. Oh, thank you, sir. See, people knew
I did
about this
not know that
game.
either,
Not a
yeah.
lot of people. Some people knew about it. I thought Overblood would have had more to say about it. Like, I forgot it's only 2 commons, but like, it was a replay game that. But
I mean, I forgot it was a replay game.
yeah, but Overblood seems like treat the replay stuff like it's a religion almost at times.
I've definitely been there.
So, and then the last comment from Carson Clark, friend of the show, he said, read/watch the old Tezuka series. It's based on You Won't Be Sorry. Well, comment in there somewhere. But, I'm not going to. That's not the 60s, not the anime. The 2019 one has my interest, maybe, but I didn't really watch the Animusha show yet. I'm more interested in that. You got one show is getting a new game,
Yeah,
which
I
I
do get a
can't
show,
really
damn it.
believe that they're
Heard about
reviving the
that.
series. Animusha 2 is getting re-released. Like, hey, because
That surprises me more than a new game, to
Yeah,
be
I'm very
honest.
curious how they handle some of that stuff.
I am too.
Yep.
Makes me happy because I'm like, hey, maybe my episodes will get more downloads now that Animusha's getting, growing again.
Jean Renault is back.
That one I'm curious to see if they'll do 3. Apparently, John Renault had came out and said something like he's
I
like,
wonder
hey,
if-
I'm in, I'll talk to me. Like I'd be happy to do something again. So fucking get him to sign a paper, pay him a little bit, and re-release that game. Damn it, 3's are really good.
I mean, we're also getting Ninja Gaiden again, so like anything feels possible right now.
It's a weird time we live in. We're getting good video games in the good part of it. Everybody's getting fired in the bad part of it, and then we're in a whole other chaos in the rest of the world. So,
The world is on fire, but sometimes good things come out of the fire. Sometimes.
All right, and we should give away a code before we go to our ranking. Let me see. Thanks to Fanatical, I have more codes, but I never really ran out yet, so I'm still cleaning up codes from before. But all right, next code you're going to get for Steam, it is Inertial Drift. It's a racing game. That's all I know. And the code is M7HZNVKWTZ K76EX. That is your code for Inertial Drift. All right, let's go to Shelf Stacker Box. And Joseph, why don't you go first?
I am going to put this on the shelf. I really enjoyed my time with this game. It was definitely a fun throwback to an era that I absolutely loved playing games in. I think it's a hidden gem on the system. And yeah, definitely check it out. Don't pay the outlandish price for it. Get it through other means, or if you know someone, borrow it. But it is, yeah, definitely play this game if you get the
agree.
chance.
I'll go
Though
next.
you won't be
I'm putting it on the
disappointed.
shelf too. This game really surprised me with how much I enjoyed it. And like, I'm going to be recommending this game to people all the time. Just like he said, I'm not going to recommend that you buy it, but I will recommend that you play it. So I also never recommend for anyone to buy anything like older if you have to pay like ridiculous prices. Like if it's on Steam and you can pick it up for like under 20, I will recommend games. But if you're looking at like you got to go pay some idiot who has it sitting around on his shelf for years, I don't recommend. I mean, if you want to and you like collecting, go right ahead. But this is a game I put it on the shelf, and I'm really glad we did it on the show. I'm happy this has happened. This is thanks to both of you being like, yeah, I'd play it. I'm like, all right, there it goes. And I got people.
Hell yeah.
That's what does it with some games. As long as I know there's people who will do it with me, I will do it. Because for a while, like I was still building up my base of people who wanted to be on the show. So I had to I was taking less risks with random shit like this. So, and Dominic,
Have to be of service. I think I put this one on the stack. I like it. I mean, maybe because I played on real hardware, I have a little more of a. I feel a little more burned at times, maybe resentment. Sure, but it's a cool game, and I do like it. I think I like Bujin Gaia more as like a flashy like game I can come back to anytime. This one it's like a little more challenging. Like I have to like really sit with it and like commit it to memory. So in that way, like.
if you commit to memory, I thought it was got it memorized.
So I like it, but it's definitely not like my shining example of like what a PS2 game is. It's not the first one I'm going to pull out for people.
All right, and we should announce what we're going to be talking about next week. We kind of already did, but I have to do what I do. So we will be talking about Metal Gear Acid 2 next week. So,
Metal Gear Acid.
It's a weird ass fucking game. I will just say that. Weird fucking game.
You know why the Vita failed? There was no Metal Gear Acid on Vita.
That's it.
Man, after playing Acid 2, I did not realize how upset I would be that an Acid 3 doesn't exist. I'll just leave it at that.
And there was
the closest we got was
and it
Uncharted
was
Fight for
gonna be
Fortune.
Awesome.
Instead.
You mean Golden Abyss?
No, there is a card game for the Vita called Fight for Fortune.
Oh, okay. Vita's is one I don't know much
Yeah,
about.
there is.
That's another system I didn't do any love yet and have not gotten an emulation for yet. I should, because yeah, I know.
Oh, don't worry, Sony.
The Vita has a lot of cool
either.
games. It definitely deserves some love, but it's down there even more than the Dreamcast, I think.
On my list. Great. I guess we should just go to plugs. And Dominic, where can we find you at?
I'm on the Distant Ways podcast. That is a show that we do on YouTube, potentially other places at some point, but we're lazy. We are on hiatus right now, but we'll return in probably like a few weeks here. So check it out. It's a music podcast. It's fun.
All right, and if you enjoyed this episode, there's over 750 episodes of this podcast. We do movies, comics, TV shows, video games. We have a giant catalog. You can find everything we do on Podbean, Spotify, the entire catalog there. Go through. You never know what you're going to find. And Bobby, you can just search. You can type in whatever you want and search it. And you will find a lot of random shit, I guarantee you. So go check that out. If you want to support the show, we do a Patreon for those out. You can vote in our Patreon polls. We have 1 to 2 a month. I'm trying 2 a month right now because I'm decently ahead of schedule. So definitely go check that out. And we have a Discord. Please join the Discord. It's free. You can chat with us. You can lurk. I don't care. I'm fine with that. You can suggest things I will someday get to. You can be on the show. I'm always looking for new guests to join me for all the random stuff we do. So great way to be on the interact with the show, and it's free. I want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro courtesy Helena at Hell Has Free. Follow her on TikTok and Instagram. Definitely go check her out. And check out Gamer Looks at 40 with Bill Tucker. You will see his work on there. And please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, YouTube, audio only, rate and views over, get your podcast. I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
See ya.